Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So a little bit about myself. You probably already know me. I'm a senior threat intelligence researcher at Flare and a certified dark web investigator. And my spare time, I love doing photography. I'm a huge astronomy nerd. So I love talking about like theoretical and exotic matter, or trying to figure out if like gravitons exist and if that's the answer to dark matter. And I love listening to techno. I'm an avid runner. I play a lot of badminton and tennis during the summer. So a little bit about my pedigree. So I run this amazing open source intelligence platform called Ransomlook. And with Ransomlook, what we are trying to do is to become one of the best and most complete archives of ransomware data. So onions, victims, and now affiliates and users, also cryptocurrency addresses and known wallets and like ransom notes, anything to do with ransomware, we're trying to basically curate under one roof. This is a community event and we're just 3 people running Ransomlook, but we already have like one of the most complete, basically one of the most complete encyclopedia and catalog of ransomware operators. Last year I started Ransom Isaac with some other individual from Europe. This is basically a Isaac that is designed to be an open source and a community for ransomware. So incident responders can be part of this, and we're trying to basically make it so that individuals can get the latest in the progress of like, I'm responding to this incident. And again, there's like TLP, amber and red and different so navigating what you're allowed to say during an active breach is really, really difficult. So that was like one of the main things that we tried to address, and like what can you say and what can't you say. I'm also part of the last one, Curated Intelligence, which is something that was started by Will Thomas. And this is another trust group that designed at threat intelligence and the community as a whole. And that was started in 2019. So these 3 basically give me a bird's eye view and insider's view of what is happening in the world of ransomware. So this talk is designed to be told in 3 acts. We're going to start off with the skids, and then we're going to go all the way to the syndicate. And we're going to look at what basically these worlds are. And the way I want to tell the story in this narrative is more of a way of essentially looking at what each level of expertise that these individuals have, what they're capable of, what their tactics and their techniques are, and essentially like how their economy works. Because as we're going to see a little later, especially in the higher tiers, like the economy isn't doing as well as they want you to believe it is. They are struggling just as much as the other side is as well. So it's going to be an interesting development. So these stories and this data is based off of like leaked internal documents that was leaked from, for example, Conti, but more recently Black Basta last year. So this is going to be really interesting. So let's take a look at Act 1. But to set the stage for Act 1, I want to just basically look at and explain the concept of a second economy and how that looks like. So there's a concept basically in the Soviet Union, in the Soviet era, called nalevo, and that basically means the left or the left hand. And what that was that there was a lot of shortages, and there was a lot of issues during the Soviet Union where they weren't able to have access to like food or different parts, or like if you were a farmer, you didn't have access to tooling and things like that. So you had to basically rely on this underground market, on this underground economy to essentially be able to do what you needed to do to get the basics and to be able to continue and just go ahead and like just to get by. So what ended up happening was, like, if you had a tractor, for example, and it broke down and you needed to get like a missing part, you wouldn't go through the standard like centralized government method of doing it. You would have to go through your friend who worked in a factory of the tractor that made the parts, and you would get it from him. So a lot of the ways that this underground economy, now this is not unique to Soviet Union, of course. This type of economy exists everywhere in the world, but it was really prevalent and really like documented in the Soviet Union. So now that we have this underground economy and this concept of the second economy, let's look at what everyone is doing now, and we're going to start with the skids. So this one is where usually everybody like gets their first taste of cybercrime. And this is like pirating games. This is the telegrams. This is like you're looking at it and you're getting into it and you fall into it. You're looking at it as your friends are doing something. I hacked, or the Google of how to hack. You're basically a script kiddie. That's what skid means, is you're a script kiddie, and you essentially recycle scripts, and you try to use a lot of cracked software, and you end up getting infected yourself. So for example, we did some incredible research, and we found a lot of threat actors were detonating their info stealers on their systems, and they were leaking all of their credentials onto the dark web. And so this is how we were able to track a lot of these guys down, is through their own like detonation and not using proper virtual machines and stuff like that. But a lot of this is like imagine yourself, imagine the first time you were doing some back in the early 2000s, there was this website called hackthisSite.org, and I remember when I was going on there for the first time, and I was trying to do those CTFs and those challenges and things like that, especially the web hacking stuff, and I got the flag, and I was able to go to the next one, that rush of adrenaline. But now things are a lot more, everything's dialed all the way up to 11 now. And we're not just doing these simple challenges. Now everyone's actually dropping environments and dumping Salesforce databases and things like that. The tooling has gotten much more sophisticated. The threat actors have gotten more savvy, even at the entry level, right? And they still do really dumb mistakes, and of course we can still catch them. But the environment has changed, right? And a lot of it is fueled by having this world and this personality of being online, this persona that you've created versus the one offline. So this is the stage, it's the bedroom, right? This is where a lot of these individuals are building these alternate lives. And there's this concept of why are they doing this, right? And why is someone doing this? And this is called the strain theory. Now, the strain theory was something that was coined by Merton in 1938. And this is a concept, basically, that explains why people tend to gravitate towards crime, and hence cybercrime today. And that is conformity, innovation, ritualism, retreatism, and rebellion. Now, what are we looking at here? So, for example, conformity is, are you being forced to conform to something that you don't want to do? And basically, if you don't conform, you can basically be committing a crime. Innovation is also another way of doing it. A lot of people want to become innovators, and they tend to break the law to become innovators. Ritualisms, right? We all have our ritualisms. We all have our ways of doing things, and we all have things that others can deem that aren't quite, how do I say, the way you do it isn't the way that you should be doing it. But my most important one is retreatism. And that is basically, are you able to get away from your shitty situation? If you cannot get away from your shitty situation and your hardship, like, you are going to crack and you're going to be under a lot of strain. And imagine if you you're forced to conform and you can't really, like, you're forced to like just not innovate and just do the same thing over and over again, and you can't escape it. You're going to rebel. These are all things that basically cause people to go on through these, right? And like, there's the goal of like the pressure of being successful, and there's the pressure of essentially like finding, like, are you able to find legitimate ways to get through all of this like pressure? Or sometimes you have to resort to crime, right? And this causes people to snap, right? And when you snap, you lose that filter, that block that basically that stops you from committing crimes. And it's sometimes you just do it once and you get that dopamine rush and you're like, okay, I got away with it, and now you can keep going and going and going. And this, you're morally snapped. There's another thing that happens as well in these environments, in these skids, and that's the apprenticeship of crime. And this is a concept, it's also known as the differential association theory, and this was a concept coined by Sutherland in 1939. And these are like old school concepts, but they actually really apply today. And basically, criminals teach criminals how to be better criminals. So when you go to jail or prison, you actually come out a better criminal. And so this is the same concept that comes on like through these like Telegram channels, these forums and things like that. Especially since the old guard is retiring and they've made their millions. Like the people have to train the new generation, the new skids, to become like the millionaires again. So, and the thing is like, when everybody was, like, if you're looking at basically timing, right? Industry and the timing and things like that, especially in Russia, like during the 2000s and the 2010s, like there was like the dot-com bubble and all this stuff, like people were learning how to become like developers and things like that. Like all of that age bracket, like the millennials and everybody in that age bracket was able to essentially like develop the skills and have the resources to build criminal empires, right? But now that these criminal empires have basically like they're finished, like the Contis and the Logbits and things like that, they've made their millions. You don't have the drive anymore, and now you have to teach the next generation. And how do you teach the next generation? And the thing is that you don't only teach the techniques, right? You teach them how to rationalize with their crimes. And that is one of the biggest things. It's like, not only are you telling them like, bro, this is how you do like a Don Pappy, and then you pop your you dump all your credentials through Win API, but you basically, this is how you handle the stress. This is how you handle the pressure. And that education comes right away at the very beginning. Now, there's a lot of toxic and really like people that will take advantage of young individuals at that, or that inexperienced individuals at the beginning, and that like people like break and hurt themselves with the pressure at this stage. But at the same time, this is where you develop the skills to rationalize, to become a criminal. And it becomes easier. Like I want to know, like, how many of you find it like absolutely easy to pirate something morally? Like a song or a movie or something like that, show of hands. Like, it's nothing. Yeah. So there's these techniques and these like mental and the psychology of this, like it gets easier over time and you rationalize it. Because for those who rose your hands, like, did you learn about like downloading? Did you study it? Did you like go out on forums and like Reddit and things like that to learn how to do that? Or was it like just something that your friends were doing? So it's like through exposure that you were basically learning how to commit this and rationalize it. So the other thing that I want to talk about is the paranoia. and not just living with the stress, but it's living with the paranoia. So a lot of the lower levels, especially this paranoia goes all the way to the top. But when you first experience true paranoia, it can be very, very damaging to your psyche, to your physical health, to your relationships. And this is where a lot of people who don't have the coping mechanisms or the social network of like that they're in this with, like at the syndicate level, everybody knows what the game is, that this is for money, and they sort of know how to cope with this paranoia. But when you're just getting into it, and let's say, for example, Wei Fu, who was a Connor, who was a Conrad, sorry, was a very big hacker from Canada, from Ontario, who basically was the one to attack Snowflake. Essentially, he kept reaching out to researchers and other individuals, threat intelligence researchers online, trying to ask if they knew who he was in real life. And like, it just got so, the spirals got so bad. Like Wei Fu, the OPSEC was heavily impacted because of this. And mistakes were made and things like that. One thing led to another, and basically they were ended up getting caught. But what we need to do is study this paranoia and how do we weaponize this paranoia. And what I want to do is I want to show you a quick little video of essentially what paranoia can look like. Now, there's this, in the world of scattered lapsus spider and like Wei Fu and things like that, there's a queen, as we should say. Sev is one of these individuals, and her way of coping with basically this paranoia is to drink excessive amounts of alcohol and to basically get individuals to buy her things online. And the simping way. But let's have a look at that. If it's going to play. No, it's not going to play. So essentially, this is Sevi and Sev, and she is one of the people that was running one of the main accounts for scattered hunters, lapsus hunters, and she was also one of the ones to coordinate with a lot of the top individuals. So like the individuals that were in France and the individuals that were in the UK, she was in Turkey, and she was the one that was able to communicate with them. And she had the clout, she had the reputation. But the thing is that she grew very, very paranoid and disillusioned by everybody that was coming, especially once her private telegram was made public by, and she did it by herself. She reached out to VX Underground and said, "This is me. You can tell everybody that this is me, and I'm the scattered lapsus hunter's queen." And everybody started flooding her, and she ended up going into like severe paranoia because she didn't want the authorities to come get her, even though she was committing. She was selling massive databases to everybody. So now let's look at the next level, Act 2. Let's look at the affiliate. The affiliate, right, is the ones that are on the forums. Now they've gotten through the rough patch of starting things off, right? They've probably gotten a few hacks under their belt, and now they're looking at making this a project that they can monetize. So this is the little entrepreneur, the one that is like, okay, I'm going to try to figure this out. I've got a few bucks. I'm going to school. I'm starting to work. I can make this work. I can start building this out. So some of you might have seen this video, but this is how ransomware gangs now are commercializing their projects now. So this is a commercial for a RAS, for Ransomware as a Service. So what's interesting is that these individuals are building out these RASs. They're the ones that are saying like, hey, I'm recruiting, I want to, and then they find initial access brokers, they find the red teamers, and then they basically build out the infrastructure to host these affiliates so that they can conduct their attacks on behalf of them. This takes a lot of seed money to do this, right? So for example, if you're starting a RAS, like just basically programming and developing a whole panel that is like at least robust enough to launch, right? And then you want to always launch with a few victims on your dedicated leak site, aka your DLS, to show that you mean business. Like this is, you're already a few grand, like a few tens of, like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, like because you have to pay for initial access unless if you can source everything yourself, like you're at least 20 grand, like out of the gate, you're like 20 grand just to get things started. Now, there's a problem in the industry now, and we're gonna get to this in a little bit, but like your return on these attacks is diminishing every year now. And there's a fascinating concept that's happening. I want to show you one more advert, and this is from Global. Now, what's funny is that Van Helsing and Global are both defunct as of this year, but Van Helsing was last year, Global made it official this year, but we can have a look at this one. Like, imagine being someone who, as a company, as a legitimate company, trying to offer these features, like unlimited storage, right? Like, this all costs money to run. And you have to pay the developers. You have to pay for all of the research that goes into this, right? The testing, everything. And being able to source initial access for new victims every day, like this is not easy to do. And it is showing with threat actors, especially if your margins are only 15% of the ransom, right? From their side, because 85% goes to the affiliate. So the red teamer that launched the attack. And you have to keep in mind that you have to buy a cryptor so that your payloads are always FUD, fully undetectable. And you have to essentially make sure that like you can actually keep the payloads in a state that they cannot be detected by new EDRs. So you have to test EDRs. You have to maybe it's like static signatures doesn't matter, but you have to make sure that you're always at the forefront. That all that research costs money. So there's a bunch of these groups, right? Nova, Anubis, Van Helsing, and these are just scratching the surface of these types of groups that are on the dark web and on forums, essentially advertising their services so that you can get recruited into them. And these are the big difference between these and, for example, like Black Basta or Akira, is that these are like public recruiting ransomware as a service. It's not like Akira where it's invite only, or Clop where it's invite only, right? And you got to be part of a very small group of trusted individuals to be even part of those groups or conduct attacks under their banner. Black Basta operated, and we're going to take a look at their criminal enterprise, but they operated as a business, as a corporation almost, and it was extremely hard to get into it. Like you couldn't just go off on a forum and send someone a DM and be part of Black Basta. That's not exactly how it worked. So the thing is that not only at this level, like the stakes are much higher, right? You're making more money. Like now you're not trying to get $500 for a spreadsheet anymore, or $200 for a spreadsheet. You're asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars in ransoms. But the paranoia now is much higher. And it's different things, because now, depending on how the the ransomware service that you're on, how do you know that they're not going to run away with your money? Because a lot of the times, the way it works is that the victim will pay into a single wallet, and then that wallet, which is controlled by the ransomware as a service, will then give you your payout, which is usually the much larger cut. But they want to make sure that they get their cut first. And what a lot of like ransomware as a service operators are going to say to like sort of like convince you that this is the better way to do it is that they're saying like, hey, we're going to mix it for you at least initially. So if you make sure that it goes into our wallet, we'll be able to do at least a few rounds of mixing, and we'll pay the fee, and then we'll give you your cut. So the thing is that not only that are you afraid of losing your massive payout, which we've seen with, for example, there was back in 2023 and in 2024, there was a victim known as Change Healthcare, and their ransom was $22 million, and this was for Black Cat, aka Alv. And this basically was paid to an affiliate known as Nachi. Nachi was, if you go through like their forum, his posting history, you can see them like rising through the ranks of skids, learning how to develop payloads, downloading like the leaked Lockbit Black from 2022 source code, and basically developing it from there and like learning all the ropes. And they were extremely active online. And basically now they were responsible for this massive healthcare data breach and a ransom payout of $22 million. The thing is that Alv had a centralized and automated system of essentially like providing decryptors. So once you made a payment, the decryptor would become available in the chat right away. But like Alv controlled that wallet and then would pay the affiliates. Alv didn't pay Nachi, right? So Nachi went on the forums and said, hey, you didn't pay me, and I need my money because I still have the data. It doesn't count. I'm going to go to a different group. So Nachi moved their data to Ransom Hub and essentially said, pay me again. Now, is this true? Like, as an outside observer, you don't know if this was true, and is it someone just double dipping? There's that paranoia there as well. Now, on the other side is like the people in my team, are they feds or are they researchers, or can I trust them? Because a lot of this is built on zero trust, but at a human level, right? Like you don't know who you're talking to 99% of the time. You try to get dirt on them because having dirt on someone builds trust, and like dirt for dirt builds trust, and you're trying to essentially like figure out how are you going to like have enough to defend yourself against attacks, but also you want to also figure out like, are you part of a honeypot, right? Like for example, the many breach forums that have been going up and down, up and down, up and down. Like when you log into breach forums and you want to put up your database or your advert for your stolen data, like are you posting on a honeypot, right? And it's completely controlled by the Fed. So these are the different types of paranoia that you have at that level. Now let's look at some interesting things that have recently been in the development. So this is Chaos, and this uses on-ramp. And essentially what's happening here is, I'm going to let you read this if you want, but essentially now a lot of the ransomware operators, especially at the pretty good, like Chaos is essentially a rebrand of Black Basta. So this is like almost touching the Syndicate level, but they're saying that they are running into the point where it's very hard to recruit affiliates, trusted affiliates. And affiliates are the red teamers, the ones that can conduct the attacks. And they're having issues with larger payouts or having like decent sized payouts. For example, Killin, in one of their private chats, was telling me that 1 in 20 attacks now pays decent. So what does decent mean, right? It's essentially 6 figures. So a lot of these individuals now are saying that they don't want to invest time in affiliates if the affiliate is only going to take 10, 20, 50K for an attack. The problem is that insurance companies that are conducting that are paying for like negotiations and things like that, or other like negotiation firms, like share the metrics of how much these threat actors can take, and then it basically sets the bar really low for every single affiliate. Now this problem isn't new. We saw this exact issue roll out with Lockbit in September of 2023, where essentially one of their side groups called National Hazard Agency, which was led by the right hand of Lockbit sub known as Bastarlor, aka Fisheye, which is the one that is popular for the Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the How to Hack, essentially, as an affiliate. And those, basically, those affiliates of National Hazard Agency were saying, hey, all the new guys that are rolling into Lockbit, because 2023 was one of the biggest years for ransomware, and they're basically saying like, hey, everyone's taking these tiny ransom payments, and now when I go in and I want to say like, hey, I want like $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for the ransom, like basically they're saying, hey, like we dealt with you before, because it's all to the victim, it's all Lockbit, right? Or the negotiators are it's all Lockbit. So they're saying I dealt with Lockbit before and I was able to get a 50% discount or an 80% discount. So it hurts everyone, right? So this is good as a defender. So chaos right now, and this is like part of like why like reading these like forum posts and engaging like hands-on with the threat actors is really interesting, because now we know that with chaos, their minimum payout for a ransom is 200K, right? So when you're developing your negotiation tactic, you know that this is probably where they're gonna go, and this is invaluable information that you can only start having. So let's take a look at now the Syndicate. Now this is the ransomware operations that are run like a business, and these are the ones that are run like a corporation. And the thing is, these individuals, when they're running their business, they're running it as, for example, they're running it like they have HR, they've got payroll, they've got managers, they've got dialers, they've got operations, they've got offices, they've got the level of coordination that these individuals have now, especially when you get to the top, when it's such a well-oiled machine, you've got your initial access broker, like that is your group that you know how to source, and you don't have to like worry about like finding new, because you've got people working for that, specifically in that department, that will keep giving you fresh access. You're the ones, like for example, Conti was developing Iced ID and Emotet and TrickBot, and these three pieces of malware were responsible for basically using emails to infiltrate through phishing and through infected emails, setting up like persistence, and basically from there offloading TrickBot, and from there TrickBot was able to do command and control or C2, and from there they were basically back into your environment. So to develop like all of these tools and these like techniques and these evasion techniques and these attack techniques, it takes time, skills, and resources. So let's have a look at one individual specifically. And this guy is named Tramp. Now, Tramp's been in the ransomware business, and this is a real individual. Tramp's been in the ransomware business for a long time. Tramp started off with Conti, and basically when Conti, in 2022, when Conti sided with Russia for the war with Ukraine, the Ukrainian team, or the Ukrainian faction of Conti, basically was like, no, what are you doing? That's terrible. So basically that whole half of Conti, the Ukrainian side, essentially doxed Conti and leaked all the jabber and all of a bunch of chat logs from Conti and the source code for their ransomware. That's why we have so many like individuals that are basing their initial ransomware off of either Lockbit, because that leaked too, Van Helsing, and then Conti. So all of these like super polished source codes are leaked, and Babook as well. So these are how the building blocks of a ransomware ecosystem is built. So Tramp is this individual who was part of Conti. So when Conti split up, it's fractured into 3 teams: Conti Team 1, Conti Team 2, and Conti Team 3. And essentially, Tramp was one of the masterminds for like the whole operation of how to organize TrickBot and how to essentially leverage all of that information, like those campaigns, and that business level. So in 2025, BKA, essentially the German police, was able to dox him and reveal his identity. So this is Tramp. I only show pictures if they have been vetted and officially named by law enforcement. So this is Tramp, and this is similar to like Lockbit, Dimitri from Lockbit, where they were showing his pictures and everything. So now he has and he's in Ukraine. They searched a bunch of houses. They didn't arrest him because he wasn't at the houses that they wanted, but essentially he was able to slip through the cracks. But what's interesting is that we're going to see this type of like wanted poster more and more, and because a lot of these guys are wanted and essentially cannot even leave their country anymore, because going to Europe, their wanted posters are everywhere, and it's just really, really hard for them to travel. So the thing is like this here is just the peak of the iceberg of how Black Basta was organized as a corporation. So we were able, through the Black Basta leaks, we were able to essentially reconstruct all of the internal structure of how they were organized and how they operated. So we're going to take a quick look at that. So essentially, Black Basta, right, was, so like Tramp was one of the leaders of, and we published this research before the BKA came out with the name Oleg and Nefendo. So we were able to actually name Oleg before BKA actually came out with the name. And so what we're saying is like, so Black Basta had accounts on BHF, they had accounts on Exploit, they had accounts on XSS. Now on XSS, you're strictly not allowed to talk about ransomware. But that's not what they wanted. They were there to look for recruiters, like programmers. They were using Exploit as a way to offload data sets that they like. So when they say we're going to leak your data on our dedicated leak site, it costs money to host all of that data. So what they do is that they package the data into and sell it under different like clusters and different names on Exploit, BHF, XSS, and essentially they don't necessarily say the name of the company that they're selling. They go through their data brokers that they know very well, and then they tell the name of the victim in private channels, because they know there are vendors out there, there are law enforcement out there that hit on keywords. So all of these criminals are very, very much understand now that keywords you have to be very careful about saying certain things online. So they basically just say the type and the environment and the basically the what country like sector the company is in, and what the revenue is, and essentially what type of data that they're trying to sell. So they're very, very careful with that. Now, they also operated on RAMP, which is pretty much like a Russian and Chinese-speaking ransomware forum. And this is where we saw, for example, Mike Melton. Mike Melton, which was the account that we saw earlier that was discussing the issues with like getting payouts or for chaos, this is where they were also operating. So they had 2 offices in Moscow, and from there they were basically able to operate and basically source dialers. They were able to hire people. So one of the really interesting things is that they had their ransomware side, and then they had their external affiliate side. So on their internal ransomware support side, right, everything was, so all these nicknames are from the leaked Black Basta leaks. and from the chat. So this is the Matrix server that got leaked. And on the right side is basically the ransomware affiliates that they were invited in. So Black Basta was known as a closed group. So if you wanted to be part of Black Basta, you had to be invited in or like be vetted in. It wasn't just like a RAS where you can like sign up and pay a fee and then become part of it. So what's interesting is like you had the internal team and then you had the external team. The external team was the ones that would basically do the pen testing. So when the internal team would source the initial access, they would make sure that they had like TrickBot or IceID, or by the end it was like QuackBot, PikaBot, all that stuff. Once they were in the system and in the network, they would basically have the red teamers, they would offload to the red teamers to be like, hey, okay, now I want you to do privilege escalation and I want you to exfiltrate the data. Here are the FTP servers and I want you to essentially deploy the ransomware. Now, these two sides talked constantly together on Matrix. And, but you had, and then sometimes you had the negotiations would go back to the to Black Basta, like the core team. They wouldn't let external affiliates take care of it. And the payments were to go directly to Black Basta. So if you were an affiliate, you were really just being used for the red teaming aspect of it. Now, what's interesting about this is that you had a third arm. And this third arm was the social engineers and the initial access and the negotiations team. And very similar to this, but these were the core negotiators. And what I really think is what happened was there was a fracture at some point between the three pillars, the three core teams. So what we're looking at is essentially someone in here basically ratted everybody out. And this happened because this leak was originally from 2023, September of 2023 to September of 2024. And there were some really big attacks from Black Basta during that time. Notably, there was the Toronto Public Library, but there was also, for example, Ascension. Ascension was referenced extensively in this leak, and they were terrified of hitting a hospital or basically a healthcare provider of that size, because on the flip side, the negotiators on the victim side were telling them that they were killing people, and they were freaking out because they didn't want to kill people. They didn't want to have blood on their hands, or they didn't want to have that on their conscience. So they're actively telling their managers up the ranks that, hey, don't ever give me access like this ever again. I do not want to see that. And what we have to keep in mind, oh, that's a repeat, is these individuals, these teams would also recruit other individuals from way outside of like on Fiverr and stuff like that. So this is one individual. So this is an individual named Arslan, who was Pakistani, and what was really interesting was that he was working for $20 a week. And he was paid in crypto, and this is from 2023 to 2024. And what he would do all day for like 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, is he had these extensive spreadsheets, which we got access to. And what we did is we had access to all of their victims. And these are their scoping victims. So this is the victims that they were scoping, right? And they were using Zoom info, they were using their phone numbers, and they were trying to see like if the information that they had, the emails that they had, the names that they had, because they would be using this for social engineering later. And because Black Basta, and especially in the 2023, 2024 campaigns, what they were doing, they were heavily using like Microsoft Teams to infiltrate and to social engineer and to do like the, hey, click on this or accept this type of thing. And so what they were doing is that this is them confirming all of this information. If they were confirming if there was a voicemail, if they were confirming all of this information. So this is Arslan, and Arslan was terrified of doing something wrong. And one day he wasn't marking it correctly and got into a big argument with one of the managers. And so basically, one of the managers was like, hey, I'm going to pay you for your day, which was just a couple bucks, but it's like, I'm going to pay you for your day, and I'm going to, I don't want you to come back. And Arslan gave this huge story and this huge paragraph of like, please, please, please don't do this. I need this job. And again, this was found, like, he was found off of like Fiverr or something similar. And he thought, legitimately, he thought he was working for like a Russian company. And this was like a telemarketer, right? This is what he thought, he legitimately thought it was. And what's, so this is, for example, some of the notes that he would do, like not picked up and going for the voicemail. But what's really crazy is that there was another individual who started off as a dialer and quickly figured out that this was not on the up and up. And essentially, because he had more tasks and was essentially had to do something called initial access testing. So he was actually testing credentials. So he was like the next step up, and quickly figured out how much he was getting paid was not, and he was also a native Russian speaker. So he basically tried to ask for more money, and then he was kicked out right away. So they're very close knit, and they don't want, even if you're a Russian, they don't want you to know too much. So let's talk about another massive corporation here, and this is called Evil Corp. Now, if you're a Mr. Robot fan, you can sort of see where this came from. But this is not only Evil Corp showing you that they can operate as a company, as an enterprise, but it's also a family business a lot of the times. So, for example, we had Maxime on the bottom, this individual right here. He was part for one of the most huge ransomware attack in Australia on the healthcare center. It was so bad, and it resulted in basically the fact that Australia will never pay a single ransom and has banned ransom payments going forward. So he is the one responsible for that. So if you think about it, like, how badly do you have to, like, how bad do you have to be to do something like that? And basically, he was extorting all of Australia with the medical records of most Australians, and saying, "I'm going to leak everything if you don't pay me." So a lot of these guys also worked on TrickBot, and they worked on, for example, like Emotet or IcedID. Like, they had a lot of things that they were working towards and were working together. Now, the thing is like, a lot of these individuals are sanctioned at an individual level, and collectively they're known as like Evil Corp, for example. But the thing is that if you are a victim and you need to pay, like, and they attack you, you can't pay them, right? They're sanctioned. So it makes things, knowing who you're dealing with, really, really important, because a lot of these individuals worked with, for example, like partnered through other ransomware as a service offerings, like Lockbit specifically. So, for example, when Lockbit attacked sick kids, you have to figure out, like, and because sick kids gave, Lockbit gave sick kids a free decryptor, like, you have to understand that there's definitely a lot going between the lines of like what happened there for that to happen, because it's a business, and like the fact that they attacked a hospital, they've attacked many hospitals before. Like, that's, if you want to know more, come in and talk to me after, but that is something really interesting. And not necessarily in terms of like what happened, but like just knowing like how individuals and how affiliates work, and how all these like the cogs that work into the machine. Like, it's really fascinating to see. So let's go into the next one. So like I said earlier, like these guys are very much cooked and screwed, because they can't even like travel outside of Russia at this point. So I was traveling, I was in Munich, and I was basically going through passport control, and I saw this, and I got yelled at for taking that picture. But essentially, like, these are wanted hackers, and that's literally what it translates to. And these two individuals are on the previous page. So what we're looking at is, right there, Igor is one of them. So what's really, it's like they operate, like they pay their dues, they pay their taxes, they pay, they pay to have this lifestyle with law enforcement in Russia. And if they stay there and they don't attack Russia, they are very much like, you can't extradite them, you can't really touch them there. And that's what makes this type of crime so difficult to persecute and like cut at the source, is because it only if they start impacting Russia or their home country will like local law enforcement actually want to do something about it. Because at that point, like this is Maxime, this is the one that attacked Australia, like they're not really going to do anything about it. And so there was this one time last year in 2025, there was Joker Stack. Joker Stack is like this carding forum, this mixer, this money laundering forum basically. And they got completely annihilated in Russia. There was like 122 like simultaneous seizures and like knock and bang like warrants, and it was a massive coordinated effort. And this is because they were laundering money and they were taking money out of Russia, right? And they were impacting Russia. So this is something like that they will take very, 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 very seriously. But again, if they're not targeting Russia, nobody's going to care. And a lot of this is like state-sponsored, like, or even like organized crime that a lot of these individuals will like. The government will be like, hey, can you help us out with this? Like, this benefits us and this benefits you. You can make a lot of money. So this is how things work. And the way the world is working, and especially like Canada, and how like a lot of like law enforcement and intelligence agencies, like especially in Canada, we're looking at like collaborating more with the private sector, especially since we are not looking at like the states now as a reliable partner. We want to like make sure that, like, especially as Canada, we have this robust like option of and these like this means of working with the private sector. And Russia has been doing that for years, and Europe is doing that now. And so this is definitely something new that's going to be coming in the next few years. So I have a few videos here that I want to show you the lifestyle, the lavish lifestyle that these individuals are living, and I can show you this here. So I sourced these clips from the NCA, the National Crime Agency, and the UK. Don't worry, he doesn't hurt it, just pets it. But yeah, very stereotypical, very much. So I want to leave you with one question at the end of this. And happens when threat actors stop believing in this structure, right? What happens when they cannot like trust even the RAS model? And we're starting to see some interesting innovations happening at that forefront. And how do you build trust on the dark web and like in these forums? And do you like, so we're starting to see some really interesting things happen, because this is technically the old stuff. I want to know what happens next. And for example, just to give you a little food for thought, just to get started, but like this new ransomware strain called Deadlock is essentially operating not with an onion, because they find that even an onion is too vulnerable now to takedowns, and even if they use the bulletproof server that hoster, it's no longer safe. Now they're migrating to doing their negotiations on the blockchain using smart contracts. Specifically ICP, and also they're using IPFS to distribute the data, which is really interesting, because if it gets enough like demand, it gets spread out and you can't really take it down. So it's really fascinating how these threat actors are starting to conceive of these new ideas on how to essentially extort victims. But that's the question I want to leave you all with, and thank you so much for being here. Any questions?
Hi, yeah, that was a cool presentation. I have a question about like during like post exploitation, is it possible for like an AI agent to laterally move in the network?
So that's an inevitable question, and I do have information on that. So for example, last year, the threat intel community, the CDI community, was all up in arms and freaking out because the first ESET came out saying that they had found the first AI-powered ransomware. And so what this ransomware did was it connected to a Llama server and basically issued Lua commands to do privilege escalation, lateral movement, and data exfiltration. It didn't encrypt yet, but it still did single extortion, which was exfiltration. Now, the thing is that the ESET was really quick to jump on that because they had only found one sample on VirusTotal, and they were really, really quick to jump and make a post about it. Turns out that it was actually a bunch of students from the University of New York that actually wrote this piece of software, and it was really highly inefficient because the agent was basically, it needed a Llama server to think of the Lua commands. And the payload itself was quite large, right? Because right now, if you're not using like AI, your payload can be just a few kilobytes. And especially if a lot of it is done just remotely and your payload just needs to act as a command and C2 and establish persistence, like it doesn't need to do a lot of crazy stuff, and it can like do lull bins and like live off the land as much as possible. Like it's, you can have, like there's even this new group right now that is basically fileless, lives in RAM, and basically just writes a command to do GOP and run BitLocker on all of the network, and basically it's fileless, right? It is just like a command. So that's really, really scary. But AI is too prone to, right, it's not ready, and it needs the connection. So if you have like in your server right now, you have a bunch of like calls to like ChatGPT or like Llama, and you're able to monitor that, like you're gonna, or like if you have an internal Llama server and it's connecting to that, like it has to, like an AI won't be able to come in as a self-contained AI and do it yet. it has to phone home. Like Siri does it, Google does it, everyone's doing it. All these little gadgets that have AI in them, like they're all phoning home. So ransomware, at least for now, is going to phone home too. So that's how we're going to see it.
Okay, cool. So I guess you can't like vibe code the whole thing yet?
So we've seen vibe coded ransomware, right? And it's terrible. So for example, initially, this is in the early days of like ransomware, people were, there's a specific group called Cyberwolf. And they had vibe coded this thing from VB, and it was pretty bad. And then they moved to .NET. It was also very bad. It was very slow, and they actually like hard coded the private key in the thing. So like if you were able to like deobfuscate the code, you found that like just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually was a way of decoding everything and decrypting everything. So essentially, we've seen, but vibe coding a lot of the time is not necessarily the ransomware aspect that's vibe coded. It's like the DLS or the forums that are very much vibe coded, right? That's easier to do, and so we see a lot of people like vibe coding on that level. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But I didn't put it here, but in one of my other talks, one of the techniques that we use for like quickly establishing ourselves in these, like when we're doing infiltration, sometimes they'll ask us for like pictures of like panel access or like other groups that we're in already and like share your panel. So what we do is like for example, like Lockbit has images and like screenshots of what an affiliate panel looks like. And like, so what we do is we take that screenshot, we feed it through AI, and basically just say like, quickly just do the front end code. I just want to be able to click around and make it look like I'm on that page. It doesn't need to work, right? So it's just a mock-up. So, and basically we're able to take a screenshot of that, not necessarily reuse the screenshot, but like use the code to recreate a new screenshot. And essentially that works really well for proving that we have access, because then we can change a lot of the tabs at the top and our username and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. I actually have one more question. I know Lockbit 3.0 was leaked like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Did the latest one get leaked?
I have the latest build if you want it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got it yesterday.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah.
I basically, teammates of mine that are part of Ransom Isaac, we basically leaked the panel access of like dated as of yesterday, the 14th. So you can look at all of that.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add to this question that there are startups right now that work on AI-based pen testing. So it's essentially, you can say it's on the good side, on the good guys' side, but it's still kind of like agentic, basically hacking. So Tensai is one. I saw another one that came out of stealth yesterday.
Yeah, there's, in terms of like AI doing stuff like that, the one that really blew me away, I saw it at Sector last year, was basically social engineering, and which was really crazy. So the format, the example they showed me was like, for example, let's say I'm on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile is public. Mm-hmm. The agent will go there, find my thing, and look, and then pivot and look for other instances of my social media. Wow. And what it will do is that it will try to figure out if I'm going, for example, to a conference, right? Because a lot of the times we announce that we got selected to be a speaker at a conference, or if we're going to a conference.
Starting a job.
Yeah, starting a job and things like that.
I announced that I was starting a job, and then a couple of weeks afterward, or a week or two afterwards, I received an email faking my
exactly.
CEO saying, "What's your phone number? I need it."
So the AI will do that, and for example, it's not just able to do emails and like take emails and like graphics from the website and things like that, but it's also able to do voice. So for example, if it, the example that they gave me for the conference was like, I would get an email saying that my ticket was, or there was an issue with my ticket, please call this number. I would call this number and it was all like phishing, like vishing, right? So, and that was all agentic from start to set. There was not a single person there. So like it was one agent handing off to another agent, handing off to another agent. And this was a startup that was showcasing in Sector this year, and they were backed by BlackRock, a private equity firm based out of New York, and they had some serious money behind them, and they were doing really well. Like they were already way ahead of the curve on what their capabilities were. It was terrifying. Thank you.